Would you be willing?
Would I be willing to
not to die?
Not to die, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so so I'm sitting there with it, and I just thought, well, I'll just go inside and
Not to die. Would I be willing?
and just be with that question, really be with that question. And I thought, I don't know. I'm just not sure, And I opened my eyes and I looked at my course and I was on this, so I wrote it down. And it says, "You made the problem, God has answered. Ask yourself, therefore, but one simple question. Do I want the problem or the answer?" And it seems so related, because the whole death thing being attached to that cycle, that belief that we're born and we die and go through this whole thing and age and die and then got to come back again, and the whole thing is a part of the problem.
It is the problem.
It is. It's the Course, in several places it seems like the Course is pointing to the problem being separation, but the death thing is separation.
That is separation.
That is the whole thing.
Yes.
Because without being born and dying, there is nothing.
You see, there's two reasons that we use things that we use death for. For separation, to prove to ourselves that we can, in fact, be separate.
And that we're in a body too, because we get born into a body.
Well,
and the body dies.
It's not about the body. It's way deeper than it being about the body. It's all about revenge and escape. Revenge, we use it to project our guilt onto somebody else. And escape, we use it primarily from sickness. That we allow ourselves, or we feel as though we can allow ourselves to be sick because we can always die and escape the pain. So you see, we're avoiding our most serious reasons for remaining separate. Did I move a little too fast?
Yeah.
You lost me for sure.
Okay. If you were not willing to die, for instance, it would mean that you could be trapped in sickness for eternity, according to the ego's perception. So dying is a way of escaping.
Getting out. Okay. Yeah. I can see that.
In the immediacy of things, when I went in and really sat with that, what I was most aware of was just the identity part. The identity part. So identified with my life story, that this is how life works, and willing to see myself in the other people in my life. So am I willing not to die? Okay, am I willing for my kids not to die, my friends, my family, to see the whole thing? Like, nobody dies.
Okay.
And could I was trying to really feel in myself, this is just where I went with it, if I could really feel myself ready, like poised on that edge to completely drop that whole belief that...
What other beliefs are going to go with it?
Everything.
That's the key.
Absolutely everything.
Yes.
Everything.
But that's the key to come. That's why...
Because everything's built on it, right? So then what I felt was the self-preservation, right? So everything's built around feeling about not having enough money for this or that. Needing more work because of not feeling about enough money for this or that. Needing to have food, needing to have clothes. Everything is built around to keep from dying. So am I really willing not to die? If I just think about what I go to the store each day to buy, I don't know if I'm willing not to die. Just to be really gut-wrenchingly truthful, I know when I look at some of the really radical direct experiences of God, of oneness, that I've been so graced with. That, from that perspective, absolutely die. Who needs it all? But really, right here, right now, to sit and ask it from my limited perspective, I don't think I could truthfully say that I know I'm totally willing for that. I want to be. And I think that's where the key is. I think you really hit on it, Tom.
Well, it's
Because everything's built around that preservation to keep from
it's
dying.
so much deeper.
Keep
than
from
that.
dying,
Yeah.
you know.
But it's so much deeper than that, because most of us will have the tendency, when we think of dying, we have the tendency to immediately go to the body, the body identification. But it's so
Well, it's
much
the
deeper.
individual identification. It's me as a me. You know, like as an individual, as a separate being.
Yes.
Ask the question:
Yeah.
Who is
Yes,
the
A
one?
separate being.
Who is the one that can die?
The ego dies, but the spirit goes
Yeah,
forever.
it's just my
eternity.
idea. It's just my
So
idea of myself and everything else. Is what it feels like.
There's a little safety ledge in there that I'm trying to get us past. And that safety ledge is the one that makes us stop it at it being about the body. And it's not. There is just so much more.
Well, I feel you're really hitting on it when you say it's about revenge and escape, and that's something the Course speaks about many times.
Yes.
Is about that's how we wound up experiencing separation to begin with. We wanted it. We
It's the
wanted
reason-
somehow to be separate.
It's the reason, the total reason, the Course uses forgiveness as the way out.
And it tells us what we see as a form of vengeance.
Can be. Yes. Come on, any more input?
Well, I've got a couple of questions. Just forgiveness to me is the elimination of erroneous thought, but the preservation, of course, of truth. But I think as we've been using the term death, the more clear ideas represented in oblivion. And so the question is, what do we think about oblivion? Would we rather have life than oblivion? That's kind of the way it formulates for me. And that seems to be self-evident, that oblivion would be the worst of all things. But am I on the wrong track?
No. If you, anytime you're led, you're exposing, the box. So anytime you're coming up with these ideas, try to get them all out. What does that really mean to you? What is oblivion in connection with forgiveness?
Well, oblivion is the cessation of life, is a complete cessation of life. But forgiveness to me is not. Forgiveness to me is the cessation of erroneous thought.
Of judgment.
Of judgment, yes. Of judgment, yeah. Which is kind of, to me, the cessation of judgment is the means that's used to get rid of error. And kind of how I put it together, I guess.
Okay.
It seems like there's something too in there about if I don't die. So if I remain always completely aware of whatever's here, whatever's being experienced, then I can't avoid anything. So I can't avoid uncomfortable thoughts or feelings or things that appear. And I always have to just be with them. And it seems much more radical. But that's not looking so much at dying, like physically dying so much as like an end to something. That kind of it, like you can kind of die to something by just stay away from it, or get rid of it, or don't be around that person anymore. But if I have to really sit with whatever's here and be with it, especially when it's something really uncomfortable. Like, oh, I just said that, and there was this kind of reaction came back. Maybe I hurt somebody's feelings, or maybe whatever, but I don't know if that's true. I know what I'm thinking about it, or what then I react then off of their reaction. But if I have to really be with that and not choose an out, but just stay with whatever comes up, no matter what it is.
Open your course books to page 216 of the text.
What
615.
615.
6:15.
615.
615, okay.
Section 6, chapter 29.
Section, which one? What number?
6.
6.
Top of the page.
615. Forgiveness and the end of time. Okay, let's read this section. Go ahead, honey.
Oh,
Start it
that's
out.
definitely down there.
Forgiveness and the end of time, paragraph 1. How willing are you to forgive your brother? How much do you desire peace instead of endless strife and misery and pain? These questions are the same, in different form. Forgiveness is your peace, for herein lies the end of separation and the dream of danger and destruction, sin and death, of madness and of murder, grief and loss. This is the sacrifice salvation asks, and gladly offers peace instead of this.
Now, here's the answer to your question, Sam. Here's the answer to your question. Go ahead and read the second paragraph.
Shall I read it again?
No, number
You
2.
Read the second paragraph.
Oh, second paragraph, yeah. Swear not to die, you holy Son of God. You make a bargain that you cannot keep. The Son of Life cannot be killed. He is immortal as his Father. What he is cannot be changed. He is the only thing in all the universe that must be one. What seems eternal, all will have no end. Eternal all will have no end.
We'll have an end.
And.
Will have an end. Okay, there.
What seems eternal will have an end.
Seems eternal. Okay, the stars will disappear, and night and day will be no more. All things that come and go, the tides, the seasons, and the lives of men, all things that change with time and bloom and fade, will not return. Where time is set and end is not where the eternal is. God's Son can never change by what men made of him. He will be as he was and as he is, for time appointed not his destiny, nor set the hour of his birth and death. Forgiveness will not change him, yet time waits upon forgiveness, that the things of time may disappear because they have no use.
Sounds like the disappearance of the universe. Gary Gardner's book. When he says that when we awake, the whole universe will disappear. We're going to start reading that book, by the way, in our Course in Miracles class in Hallsville in a couple of weeks. If anybody's interested in coming.
I think when it says the things of time, it's talking about physicality. That's the way I,
Yeah.
They do, yeah.
yes. And physicality will disappear because it has no use. And in that sense, the Course has told us right from the get-go, all there is love and there is nothing else. So the things of time will disappear and what's left is love.
What I hear in this is just, it's the awakened state. It's the oneness.
Mm-hmm.
It's the light. That's what he's speaking about. And it's not, and it never dies. It's never born.
So perhaps the question that we're trying to ask ourselves is not, am I willing not to die? But is there ever a reason not to love?
No,
But isn't that the question?
no. There's never a reason not to love.
There's never a reason not to love. But isn't that what we're all trying to find out?
I think it's what we're all struggling against, is seeing where we don't love, where our actions speak of us not loving in particular instances.
I see my tripping issue as judgment. If I could get to some place where I would not judge, all I would see everywhere was the love of God. But I'm busy judging this, that, they shouldn't be doing that. And, oh, look over there, look at what idiots those guys are. You know, and that, there's this kind of judgment that's what needs to go. That's what.
Well,
That's what.
it's even simpler than that. The judgment even. I mean, I just remember being the size of seemed like the town, you know, just completely merged into that oneness. And just radiance everywhere, and then hearing the baby cry. Tristan was very little. He still had a diaper. And just hearing the cry and the idea that it meant something was up, and it wasn't like a bad thing even. It wasn't like, but the mind started to form an idea about what crying is. And that, I mean, in an instant. I mean, out to here, and it's boom. This narrow.
Yeah.
You know, and then in seeing that, everything started to relax again. Because there was an immediate seeing of it. Because of what I was experiencing, the state I was in for those several months. But now it's like it takes longer to see sometimes, you know, longer to catch that. So it doesn't even have to be, oh, they're wrong, or it can be just a thought about your reality, it's still a judgment. We're sizing up even how we like our preferences.
Because you're always making an evaluation.
Well, yeah, we're always evaluating to see where everything fits together and fits in and fits. So it's not even the things that we would think have sharp edges. We usually think of judgment as things with sharp edges. It's not even.
Well, I think it is
not
because
even that,
I think it is because what you're doing when you make a judgment, you're making an identification, which is a small singularity. It's kind of a small component of whatever reality is.
That's the
So how do
thing.
you stop that?
We identify with whatever we're sizing up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you think it's real because you.
If we could
Look at it.
see as God,
Yeah.
would we see anything wrong?
No.
Nothing wrong.
But I think it's beautiful to begin with noticing that contraction. That's what it felt like to me, like a pulling in, a contraction. And being so poignantly aware that it was contraction and feeling it like an essence. Didn't even have a word for it necessarily, but feeling, oh, okay. Just like a full being exhale, let it go. Just don't need to be contracted. And then oneness again.
I get stuck on objectivity. Can one be observe something and not categorize it or evaluate it, but just simply look at something without evaluation? I don't know if I can. And that's kind of a tricky wicket right there. Okay, what am I going to do with that? I've noticed something, and I'm going to put it in some kind of a evaluative category.
Judgment.
Then don't.
And I don't know how not to do that.
Don't try to avoid it.
Don't try to avoid it.
No. Absolutely.
Well, if somebody said, whatever comes up, love that. Now, is that?
If you can't do that, don't avoid that either.
Yeah, it's non-avoidance.
It's-
Yeah.
The thing that will always be the best answer to a fearful thought is to go into it. Not to try to get away from it. Not to try to go outside of it. Just go into it. Go right through it. In fact, bearing that thought in mind, listen to Teresa read the next paragraph. Because what we're doing now is changing the slant from one purpose to another. The purpose of dying to something else. So listen to this.
Nothing survives its purpose. If it be conceived to die, then die it must, unless it does not take this purpose as its own. Change is the only thing that can be made a blessing here, where purpose is not fixed, however changeless it appears to be. Think not that you can set a goal unlike God's purpose for you, and establish it as changeless and eternal. You can give yourself a purpose that you do not have, but you cannot remove the power to change your mind and see another purpose there.
Now, what did that mean to you, Sam?
Well, I'm thinking God is being changeless, and so whatever conception of materiality that I may have, its nature is to change, and therefore it's incongruous or inconsistent or incompatible with God's nature. But
One of
I
the
don't
most
know.
powerful lessons that the Course, one of the most powerful lessons that the Course teaches
Is what?
is to teach us always to ask to see something differently. And that's the thrust of this paragraph. Give it a different purpose.
I could see this
Change your
different.
mind.
Change your mind about it.
Yeah. I think your question to begin with leads me to ask myself, who am I? You know,
Ultimately, that's where you have to go.
am I willing not to die? Am I the body or am I the
Right?
spirit?
Who's asking?
Yeah.
You're going to come to the place of recognizing who can ask that question.
Yeah.
And that, when you, again, just as you were saying about the other proposition, as soon as you move into it, it changes its purpose automatically.
Yeah.
Because you're moving toward where your real objections are. And the ego is kind of left hanging.
I think the big sentence here is, think not that you can set a goal unlike God's purpose for you.
And establish it as changeless and eternal. Well, God's purpose for us is changeless and eternal. Right? And then nothing survives its purpose is the first sentence.
Our purpose here is to learn to love ourselves by reconciling to die.
Reconciling
By reconciling to die,
To die.
won't we be saying that we have failed?
in a way,
Are we reconciling to die or to not to die?
not to die. But he was saying, as long as we continue to accept the idea that dying is needed,
Yeah.
we're changing. See that when I've said to you before about recognizing that the purpose of consciousness today is to decide whether or not to keep the idea of dying. And it's so illuminating to me because it's not about anything I'd ever imagined dying to be about. It has very little to do with the body, very little at all to do with the body. But it has almost everything to do, Scott, with my being willing to love myself. That's the escape clause that the ego gives the idea.
I got to change my mind about who I am. That's the answer to all of it.
So how do you change your mind about who you are? Ask, ask, ask.
Yeah.
Ask, yeah.
I had, oh gosh,
You could ask, and Teddy could ask, and Jim could ask. There would be 3 different answers that would take you all 3 to the same place.
on the trip, my roommate was Claudia. For 3 weeks we were together, an awful lot. And the last day that we were going to fly out to Stonaway, Alaska, we were flying home. I made a suggestion to her, and she said to me, "Yes, Mother." And I couldn't think to say, "Holy Spirit, how can I look at this?" I immediately felt hurt. And she hasn't contacted me since we've got home. And so I know, okay, I keep going, okay, let go, let God, let go, you know. But
But you can't ask now, honey. You can't ask now.
I can't
what's
ask.
going to happen.
Yeah, I've been asking. But you can see it still bothers me.
Have any answers come when you've been asking for clarity or help on that?
Well, they are, because I slept last night with no thoughts of anything. So I know that it's working its way out some way. And was there a need that I have of this friendship? You know, those kinds of questions I was asking. My ego started asking.
You know, this is, I don't know if this is so much online. Well, it is online with Course in Miracles. The first thing, just looking at you crying looks like a good thing.
Like I'm what?
A good thing, the crying, because it moves things. It's movement out of what it, you know, this kind of stuckness or whatever. But sometimes, you know, there's this miraculous thing, and I don't at all claim to be able to always do this. Occasionally I can.
Well, see, I'm
Occasionally
so
I
good
can.
at doing it, and
Occasionally I
think this
can.
time.
But sometimes it is really hard. But occasionally I can, and it is so helpful. And this is and sometimes you have to wait till you've had space. You've cried. You've gotten some of that energy out, the charge,
Yeah.
right? And then you look at it and you go, well, all she said was, "Yes, Mother." So, am I mother? Oh yeah, I'm a mother.
Yeah, I try to take care of people.
I am. I'm a
So-
mother. That's wonderful. She just said, "Yes, Mother." What's wrong with saying "Yes, Mother"? If you just take it, you know what I mean? You take it
Yeah.
without the sting.
Right.
So you're forgiving. She's forgiven. You're forgiven immediately when you just take it without the sting.
And I went there.
You know-
I mean, I thought about those. Yeah, I've always taken care of somebody. I mean,
But you made a
It might
judgment
not
be,
that,
but it
you made
might
a
not-
judgment that
I
he
did.
was calling you the critical mother.
yeah.
But then it doesn't, when it's time, like that's why I said sometimes it takes a little bit. You got to cry first, get it out, and this and that, and then really
Yeah.
ready to accept it in a different way. It's really hard sometimes, but it's so clear. It's just such a clear, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and it's outside the storyline when you do that. It totally is, because it doesn't even matter what she's really thinking or.
No. No, but I sure was aware of that one.
Let's not get too far away from our reading here. I would like for us not to miss the point that's being made.
Right. Well, that's the point.
Teresa, I'd like to have you read the last sentence of paragraph 3, and then Raj, if you wouldn't mind picking up 4.
But you cannot remove the power to change your mind and see another purpose there.
Change is the greatest gift God gave to all that you would make eternal. to ensure that only heaven would not pass away. You were not born to die. You cannot change because your function has been fixed by God. All other goals are set in time, and change that time might be preserved, except one. Forgiveness does not aim at keeping time, but at its ending. But it has no use. Its purpose ended, it is gone. And where it once held seeming sway, is now restored the function of God, established for His Son in full awareness. Time can set no end to its fulfillment nor its changelessness. There's no death because the living share the function their Creator gave to them. Life's function cannot be to die. It must be life's extension, that it be as one forever and forever without end.
Tom, don't you think though we go through these cycles though, and every time we seem to learn more until it's done? I know it can happen in an instant, but it doesn't happen in an instant for...
The Course says something that has always kind of befuddled me. And I think it's in one of our recent readings where it says that the time for our awakening has been set. We have established, not God, but we have established the time. And as soon as we will allow it to come into full awareness, then we see it.
Well,
As soon as we
wouldn't it
allow
be-
it, what? You couldn't have, as soon as we allow it,
To come into full awareness,
okay.
we see it. And when we see it, we recognize that that's the way it's always been.
Well, is that similar to saying heaven is now, which is part of the wording?
Now it's, I don't know, it's strange, but I've always had the feeling that I've been marking time until my time shows up. We're trying to stay present, trying to stay open to the awareness coming, receiving it when it is there. And yet, not really feeling as though I needed to do something now to advance it. If that makes any sense.
Wouldn't it be if the Holy Spirit is within us, that is within our real mind, the Holy Spirit would certainly know when that time was.
The Holy Spirit is our real mind.
The Holy Spirit is our real mind, and therefore it's not a mystery of when we leave the body.
Ask yourself this question.
Huh.
Even from the most mundane reasoning perspective, if what is created, if something is created by a thought that we put forth, then we are the creation of God. We are the thought of God, extended. How do you take that thought of God, which is who you are? How do you take that thought and separate it from its source?
You can't.
No.
You really can't, can you?
No.
No. So, any experience of that thought must be an experience held in conjunction with its source. That's finding the person who is asking the question. Now I am stripping away the ego person who can only question the story and finding the person who is literally asleep but telling the story. The real storyteller. Okay? So, when you ask the question about oblivion, And that being obviously a fear that you have. How could it be possible that something called oblivion could exist in the mind of someone who is an extension of the mind that made him?
Say that one more time, Tom.
It could,
I don't think I can.
Well,
because it's not in the mind of God.
oblivion, oblivion can't be real because
No,
No.
it's not.
because the only real is God's mind, which doesn't
Right.
not is an endless.
If you exist,
Eternal.
oblivion is impossible.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
If you exist, what's impossible?
Oblivion.
yeah.
If you exist, death is impossible.
Mhm.
That's a capital Y.
Yeah.
With a capital who?
The capital Y on you.
Not a little I.
If you, capital Y.
Yeah.
exists.
Well,
So the question that we've been asking, am I willing not to die, now begins to become an entirely different question.
Am I willing to be who I
Who
really
I
am?
am. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the question. Am I willing to be who I really am?
Right.
The S with the self with the
The
big
self.
S.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now I'm discovering what we said before. I'm discovering who can ask the question. The storyteller. He's the only one who makes the story real or false. The storyteller, and the storyteller cannot be separate from
Story.
the reality that created him.
The reality.
So is the storyteller the
really
split
are.
mind or the tiny mad idea that's in the mind?
The tiny mad idea is
I
the
think
storyteller.
is separate from the story.
And that's different than the split mind.
Yes, it is.
In what way?
The split mind well, let's see, how can I explain that? The split mind is not able to recognize the presence of a Holy Spirit, of a real self. It cannot recognize the presence of the real self because it's split. It sees one thing opposed to another, and the real self is whole. Does that make sense?
So the split mind must exist in conjunction with the tiny mad idea.
It's kind of a causation. It's a step in getting there, but it's not a part of it.
Wouldn't the storyteller be the dreamer?
The storyteller and the dreamer are the same.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing. I was dreaming. I was telling a story.
Yes,
Yes.
you were lost in the story.
I was lost in the story. I see that.
Aren't we all?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
but not all the time.
Yeah, like I say,
No.
but we have times when we're not. We have times when the clarity of who we really are.
Sally, that's probably one of the most valuable things that you can know. Is that there are moments when you exist totally free of the story. And the only thing that distinguishes those moments from the other moments of being lost in the story is the intention for telling the story. And that's why I ask, when that happens, that you just ask. You say, what is this for me?
Yeah.
Why is this coming? Where do I go with this?
Right. Yeah. What lesson am I to learn
Yeah.
from this one?
Yeah.
Dreams are kind of haphazard. You know, when I compare it to when I go to sleep at night and dream, I could be dreaming that I'm over there and the next sentence I'm in Chicago. You know, and it makes very little sense.
And yet, who's to say that that's not actually what happens? I mean, if we are in heaven while we're telling the story about being here on earth, then that seems to be a fairly good distance.
Yeah. Yeah. I should have said London.
Well, let's carry on here with our reading. Paragraph 5. Scott?
The world will bind your feet and tie your hands and kill your body, only if you think it was made to crucify God's Son.
Hang on right there. That is the answer to the question, to the original question, am I willing not to die?
Could you say, am I willing not to suffer? Would be more realistic to most people.
We certainly can't say that we are willing not to die, and at the same time say, but I want to retain the right to suffer.
They just don't go together, yeah.
But most people don't think about dying, but a lot of people live in a world where they think they must suffer.
Well, dying is suffering, really. It seems like they're
Well,
almost
it
equal.
can be.
They're synonymous in a
But
way.
dying, you don't seem to have any power over what, when, and how. Maybe how, but not what or when. Whereas what we're
Yeah.
talking about is, yes, we do have the power to change our mind.
We do.
And
That's the
realize
whole
that we're
point
the
of
only
it.
ones that imprison ourselves.
Well, what I get is if we're not suffering it, who cares? We don't care if we die or not if we're not suffering it. Right?
That's not totally true either, no.
Yeah.
No.
How so?
How so? I don't know. It's just not true. You can't retain the right to suffer.
No, that's what I mean. If when suffering is gone, the concern about death seems to disappear.
Well, the two are pretty
It
close.
seems like because we don't feel we're going to suffer it, we don't
Yes.
have this run on about protecting.
And what's the
from the
commonality that
suffering.
joins the two?
Like,
That
Commonality
identity, that self-identity again.
is the guilty self.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the guilty self.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus
Yeah.
says in here that I'm paraphrasing, but he says, I'm trying to show you that this world is a world of suffering, so that you will choose again. And I think it's important what Scott just read. He read, the world will bind your feet, but it says this world will bind your feet.
Yeah,
You know,
Yes.
This world of form.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Start from the beginning again, Scott. Go ahead.
This world will bind your feet and tie your hands and kill your body, only if you think that it was made to crucify God's Son.
Only if you think it was made to crucify God's Son. Sorry, go ahead.
For even though it was a dream of death, you need not let it stand for this to you. Let this be changed, and nothing in the world but must be changed as well. For nothing here, like is defined, is what you see it for.
Yeah.
You know what's right there too is this, Teddy, is your situation. And I only bring it up because you brought it to group, but we all have those situations in our lives, I'm sure, where we feel an offense or something
Yeah.
from a friend, and it says, the world will bind your feet and tie your hands and kill your body only if you think that it was made to crucify God's Son. So only if we think that the world or what's showing up in it is crucifying us,
If we brought it
right?
down to one
Or
word.
that we can crucify it,
Yeah.
you know.
If we brought it down to one word, it's fear. everything that fear is sort of like the bridge we should never step on, because across it lies trouble. So can we, in this room, decide to live without fear? And my answer is yes, if we trust goodness, God. If we trust God, we can live without fear. But do we trust God?
I
Do we trust,
think it's if we face
do
our
we
fear.
trust the one that we think is the antithesis of God?
The antithesis. Oh, you mean that
The
guy?
opposite. The big D.
Doubting Thomas?
Very much so.
I remember when I was a teenager, I even know I didn't even picture where I was. I was at a ferry. And the thoughts just entered my mind. The world was out to get me. I thought, well, that's a pretty sad thought. The world was out to get me. But it was.
Maybe it's out to
It
get
didn't
you
leave.
home.
It didn't leave. Yeah.
I think when you have some moment of truth like that, it never does leave you. Those kinds of things, you
Yeah.
remember that since you were a teenager.
Yeah.
I've got some things like that too that I've remembered that long. I think, we hear some sort of deep truth and it never leaves us.
Or a deep lie.
Right. Yeah.
I think this world is out to get
It
you.
was. The world seems to be structured that way, or
It's the way we have made it.
the way we make it, the way we,
The way-
because we made the
We have,
world.
the whole,
Yeah.
the whole thrust of the information being given us here is to show to us that we have given it the purpose of crucifying God's Son. But we can change
But
that.
we can change
They
it.
can change it, right?
We
Yeah.
can change it.
The thing that's interesting is
Yes.
watching the levels go back and forth. Jim is saying we have trust in God. Well, that's the big capital W. We made the world like it is. That's the little w. Just we're going back and forth.
To give it over to the trust of God, that's the purpose that's changing the purpose that we gave it.
I don't know if
So
the
it's hard.
statement,
I'm sorry?
This is the hard question that we really have to ask ourselves.
well, the question might be if God's plan for us is perfect happiness. That's the hardest thing for everyone to accept. But I think that's the statement that is being made in this teaching.
There's a funny statement that I read, I think it's in the course, but I don't know. It said, "It is done to us as we believe." So, I mean, if we were smart, wouldn't we want to believe that this is a beautiful, wonderful, happy place? Why do we not?
I'll tell you what, let's answer that question by reading the last paragraph.
How lovely is the world whose purpose is forgiveness of God's Son. How free from fear, how filled with blessing and with happiness. And what a joyous thing it is to dwell a little while in such a happy place. Nor can it be forgot. In such a world, it is a little while till timelessness comes quietly to take the place of time.
Well, what a beautiful paragraph.
I have all that underlined and circled and
Yeah.
everything
I do
else.
too.
Yeah.
And 3 different colors to boot.
This is what happens. This is what happens when we can make the choice
Yes.
originally that we talked about. Literally, it's making the choice not to die.
That would be changing who I identify with, the body or the spirit.
Yes.
that's that's the third place, I think, for levels, is when you say we make the choice, that would be the chooser. That would be the split mind, would it not?
Well, one part of it. If the split mind is split, then there's one part.
Technically speaking, the chooser is always the split mind. Because if the mind is not split,
Yeah.
there's no purpose in the choosing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that makes 3 levels.
But it's interesting because that first sentence can be read in several ways. How lovely is the world whose purpose is forgiveness of God's Son. Which means, well, it can be read, the world's real purpose is forgiveness. Or it can be read, how lovely is that world, which would be the real world, whose purpose is forgiveness. I'm a little perplexed.
The key
by
for
that.
me that I keep hearing Tom bring up, that I think is really the key, is the word willingness. When you say that statement about the willingness to not die, and in my reading earlier, I guess it was yesterday, and I wrote down a note from text page 210. There's a couple different areas in there, but it says the real world can actually be perceived. All that is necessary is the willingness to perceive nothing else. And so again, it's that word willingness. That's very radical.
I think what
The
you're,
willingness to perceive nothing else.
I think what you're talking
Period.
about, the real world, is the world it's talking about here in this first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
How lovely is the real world?
Yes. Yes.
And the word
And that's the place of no death.
Yeah.
So are we willing?
The
Willing
word
to see the real
willingness
world,
puts
willing not
us
to die.
This world
even
becomes the real world.
with God.
Forgive God.
We are, in other words, it's our willingness that determines the world. Well, that makes us co-creator with God, doesn't it? If we're willingness to see a screwed up world, we get to see a screwed up world. And so it's us. It's the isness of us that is calling the shots. We just don't want to admit it.
And it seems through that love, really loving everything and everyone, we get through that doorway. And there's more there too about, so to establish your personal autonomy, you tried to create unlike your father, believing that what you made is capable of being unlike him. So there's where to get our personal autonomy, there had to be a desire for that.
Is that a quote?
Yes, that's from the course.
Of course.
And we tried to create unlike our father, believing that what you made is capable of being unlike him, yet everything true is like him. Perceiving only the real world, here we have it again, perceiving only the real world will lead you to the real heaven, because it will make you capable of understanding. So again, it can be perceived when we're willing only to see that and nothing else. But it's equal to, it's just what Tom's saying about willingness. When we're willing only to perceive.
Only.
Only.
Oh, good.
When we forgive
That's
God's
when-
Son, this world becomes the real world.
That's equal to
That's
the
what it
willingness
said.
not to die.
That's true,
Because that
Brad.
is the
Yeah.
real world.
That's the world. How lovely is the world that
Yeah.
we find ourselves in when we
Yes.
forgive God's Son.
Yes.
It's like turning our backs on absolutely everything as we know it.
Sure.
Well, to cease judging.
Everything.
No, I think
In
it's...
your mind, you turn your back
In
on
my mind,
everything.
it's just a matter of, can I live without judging? Oh, it's a beautiful day. There's a judgment in that. Even though it's a positive judgment, it's a judgment. Can I live without judging? If I can, I'm in heaven. If I can't, I'm in the world. Bottom line.
You see, one thought sort of occurred to me that the word itself, forgiveness, is it's the central word in all of this, all of these things we're considering here, and to say, well, forgiveness is God's plan. It's the road, the path kind of all that. The means, the mechanism, it's all centered around that one word. But from my perspective, I think I need the Holy Spirit to help me see that path in a clear way. Because right now it's fuzzy, incongruous, strange or something.
Is that a downside, Sam?
Is it a downside?
To need the Holy Spirit?
Is that a downside?
Yeah.
To
A
need the
need, you mean, well, because if the ego, if the whole trip was to seek autonomy, then giving up autonomy seems to be a relinquishment of your ego self. Does that kind of get to your question?
It is. I read something of that, and I don't even know where it is in my notes. But Jesus was speaking about that in the Course, about somehow, and it struck me as quite silly, how this goal of to create our own autonomy, but we didn't, because now we're in all these selves, but if we go to our true self, there's only one. Now we're autonomous. We left the oneness.
Your ego doesn't want to give it up.
Section about the authority problem.
The authority problem. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
That's right,
Yeah.
Because the ego doesn't want to give it up.
No, the ego made it. Why would he give it
The
up?
authority problem. You know, the authority problem is interesting. If you look at the word, it has the word author in it. Which tells us who's running the show.
But at the same time, to me, I think I'm pretty clear the ego can't really figure it out. It's incapable of figuring it out. So I can't rely on that ego to kind of figure, well, if I just think about it long enough, maybe I'll get the clear message or something. And that's not working.
I think the ego in Latin means I am. And I think it means it in a very personal way.
Yeah.
Not you. I am. Not you. I am.
Yeah, it's a segregation.
And so there's
Separation.
another I am, and that is the I am that is one with it all, or that is all there is.
If thine eye be single, only one eye.
Yeah.
I don't know who said that.
Jesus.
Was that Jesus who said
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
What fun.
In thine eye be single.
Yeah, would you mind continuing if we continue reading?
Yeah, let's continue.
Yeah.
Where do you want us to read?
Yeah.
Where do we go?
The problem and the answer?
Seek not outside yourself.
Seek not outside. Where are we?
Seek not outside
Oh.
yourself. Next
6, 7,
Oh, I'm
Same
on the wrong
page.
page now.
Okay.
Okay.
6:17 now.
6:17.
Yeah.
I think you're up, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Seek not outside yourself. Seek not outside yourself, for it will fail, and you will weep each time an idol falls. Heaven cannot be found where it is not, and there can be no peace excepting there. Each idol that you worship when God calls will never answer in his place. There is no other answer you can substitute and find happiness. His answer brings. Seek not outside yourself, for all your pain comes simply from a futile search for what you want, insisting where it must be found. What if it is not there? Do you prefer that you be right or happy?
There's where that is.
Yeah.
Be you glad that you told
You are told.
Be glad that you are told where happiness abides and seek no longer elsewhere. You will fail, but it is given you to know the truth and not to seek it outside yourself.
You know, when I read this, I think of all the things that people want. I want a new car. I want a nice house. I want kids that behave. You know, whatever it is that's in the wanting is seeking out there. And it says seek not outside yourself. And so that turns me to the place where within me, there's nothing I need. There's nothing I want. I'm me and I love me. Not many people can say that, but I say it and I mean it. I love me. So I don't need to seek out there. There's nothing out there. It's in here. It's
Inside
in
of
here.
your head?
In here.
Oh,
This is
inside your
all
heart.
one. This is one. Oneness.
Inside of your body?
No, not the body. Spirit.
Point it at your head and your body.
Well, how do you point at spirit for me? Go ahead.
That's outside of you then.
That's outside of
It's the
you.
holy mind.
Well,
So it's
We're
not
talking
you,
about-
it's them.
No, it's the holy mind. You're
Well-
talking about the seeking, and the seeking has got to come in the holy mind, from the holy mind.
well, the body is inside of what we are.
The body is what?
Inside of what we are instead of the
body
other
is
way
the-
It's
around.
just a
I see-
thought in the mind.
I see the body as the vehicle we drive to get to, from me to you. It's
It's part
has
of the,
no other reality.
Communication tool.
it's part of the tiny man
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, I've experienced presence as being literally inside of the skin and outside in the spaciousness all at the same time. So that this empty shell thing seemed to be sitting in the midst of it, which was everything.
Being here
So-
and everywhere.
So it's, yeah, but there's no inside outside.
No, there's just here and everywhere.
We
But
are a
this
thought in the mind of God. The body is a thought in the mind of the ego.
I feel an inclination to divulge something right now, and I don't know whether it's helpful to anybody else or not, but any objective person that looked at me and knew my condition would say there walks a man that has everything. Got a beautiful home, lovely wife, wonderful children, riches,
Wonderful.
good health according to all the tests that are there.
Handsome
And
as
for me,
anybody.
it clearly is not. I've got everything. But I didn't find it there. It isn't there.
What isn't there, Sam?
Happiness, contentment, peace, none of that's there.
Where else could it be?
Gratitude. The book says gratitude is the avenue or the way to heaven. I think I have gratitude, but it's gratitude with must be some kind of inner condition.
I'd like to explore that with you
Yeah.
for just a minute. if I
That's
could.
okay.
When you say
I told everything to everybody, so go ahead.
when you say it isn't there,
Yeah.
what if there's a possibility that it is there?
Well, I certainly grant that. That's the message in the book.
Is it just in the book?
Again, coming back to this place that we were talking about a moment ago, finding the one who is asking the question. When you say it isn't there, and you have everything,
Every worldly thing.
you have everything, period.
Well, I would think that's the truth, but why don't I recognize it?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What is this last section just taught us about changing our mind? What if you can be,
I could.
what if you can see the person who is asking the question from a different light? That's all.
I see that's the way to approach it. Yes.
So why? Why
what
wouldn't
if-
you choose to do that?
I'm an idiot.
That's my
I
reason.
don't think so.
Is that your job for today?
I knew we were brothers.
It just feels like
I knew we were
blindness.
brothers.
Yeah, okay. I think one of the avenues into answering the question is humility. You got to go down to the grounding of what life is really all about. Yeah.
What I'm suggesting is that we go through how many lifetimes, Lord only knows how many, looking for something, seeking but not finding, when all of the time it's simply our motivation for the seeking that we're trying to find, we're trying to change. Everything is in place. Everything is all around us. All I have to do is say, yes, that's what I want. Not, no, that's what I don't want. Just that. And everything changes.
I do live
Yes,
a
that's
life
what
where-
I want about.
Period. That's what I want. This is what I'm looking for. I've just found it.
So we're talking acceptance, really, acceptance without judgment, sort
Yes.
of.
Yes.
That's it. That's it. That's it too.
That's it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like
So,
your text you pointed to us to read says something about this right there in the very next paragraph.
read it.
Exactly
Always
what
do.
you're saying about what we do lifetime after lifetime. No one who comes here but must still have hope, some lingering illusion or some dream that there is something outside of himself that will bring happiness and peace to him.
Ah,
That's the whole course right
yes,
there.
it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then Tom also pointed out that if everything is in him, this cannot be so.
So, yeah.
Earlier you said, or somebody said, I think it was you, the split mind can't see. Is that what we're doing here? I didn't get the last word, can't see what, but is that what we're talking about? The split mind can't see that he already has the piece
The split mind can't see that which is what the Course calls whole. Because the split mind, that is the definition of a mind being split, when it sees everything in contradiction.
Parts or all. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see parts, then you get all wrapped up in picking this
Yeah.
part and not picking that part.
Exactly.
But if you see it all, then you just say, thank you. It's-
So that speaks to this too. Because
Speaks.
we're not seeing ourselves whole when we see.
You see, forgiveness in its most simplistic form simply says, I can change the meaning and everything else will change to confirm that meaning. I've changed nothing and I've changed everything.
Just the way we look at it is what we're
Just
talking
the way
about.
we looked at it. That's all we have ever changed.
Wayne Dyer says when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
this was just another lesson for me to look at it in a different way. Exactly.
Look through the eyes of love, I think. is
Through,
the-
yeah, to take,
Well, I love what Tom really emphasized earlier too about ask.
But what?
To ask,
Oh, ask. Yeah.
whenever there's a question, whenever there's something comes up to, it said this too, you're not misguided. This is what Jesus says, you are not misguided. You have accepted no guide at all. That's our trouble. That's our trouble. So we have to ask
Oh, God.
That's
Well, like
because the
you-
ego
I am
is not real.
so trying to do that. It's like, wow, you know, really getting a sense of how far from that I've been in my practice, right?
If we've
all
chosen
day
the
with this
ego as
crazy
our
kid,
guide,
how often do
the
I
ego
ask?
is not real.
No, when I was saying, Holy Spirit, show me the way. I was doing that this morning. But you did. You all showed me the way. To accept my wholeness. And I have it all within me.
Well, it's easier for us to accept your wholeness than it is to accept our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is it that you would like to see?
Christ figured.
So be it.
Yeah.
What will make you see that?
Well, I haven't quite figured that out yet.
If you've got an answer, Tom, tell us quick.
It's everything. We've been reading here, Raj. Everything.
I'm sorry?
Nothing is required except the choice to have that and nothing else.
To choose, make the right choice.
Just that.
When you want only love, you will see nothing else. That's what this
Love
book
always finds what it looks for.
I'm just
Always.
remembering a
That's a
story
nice-
that you said long ago, and I think it's. Didn't you say when you first started studying the course, I don't really understand this, but if you will help me understand it, I will help others. And that's when he began getting help. Maybe all of us can get help, whatever we ask for. If you really think that it's possible, then you will.
Yes.
You know, you will. It's meant to give us, but until we ask, it's not imposed.
I think we need to remember too what asking is, so it's not just our words, right? So sometimes I catch myself there with, okay, where am I asking from? Am I asking from wanting to fix this other person or fix this thing outside or fix my hurt feelings or what is it? Where am I asking from? Like how earnest is it? Like where am I? Because all that's being read into when we're asking Holy Spirit or Jesus, they're hearing the whole question, not just the word. So
See, that's the great dichotomy in our learning process. We keep thinking there's a difference between the one who is asking and the one who is answering.
yeah. No, you're so right.
And there isn't.
Yeah.
We are both
Yeah.
the thought of asking and we are the thought of answering.
That's really important. See?
We got music to go with it.
God's answering.
That's the get this, guys. Get this. Yeah. That's so important. So when we ask inside in a super penetrating way, then that super penetrating place comes out in answers.
Penetrate.
That depth.
That's the only thing
That depth
can
of
happen.
being then comes out to answer because
That
we're
must
asking
happen.
from depth.
What?
You see, if you remove the restrictions, that must happen.
Yeah, openness.
There must be an answer to
Yeah.
everything, to every question.
And if I'm not getting it, I know I'm the one blocking it.
That-
I just don't want to hear it at that time.
That's
Absolutely.
brilliant.
And I forgive myself for that.
Good.
Yeah,
Great.
I've been there.
yeah. You can forgive yourself for it simply because it doesn't matter. Whether you get the answer or not, nothing has changed.
I say that to myself quite a bit. Nothing has changed. I am still, the God is inevitable. Love is inevitable.
That one statement, God is inevitable, is all you need.
It heals me a lot.
I see it as God is all there is. But we don't recognize that as God. Oh, that's not God. God is all there is. So, if God is all there is, then what's to worry about?
You know, wasn't it your book, Tom? The book, Dialogues. I believe I was reading that book and Jesus told you. Jesus said, just, you know, it's how they say in sales or whatever, in business, fake it till you make it. So he was saying, just fake it till you make it. I know you feel stupid. You feel ridiculous. Faking, I'm just going to be loving to everyone and be totally forgiving. And inside you're thinking, but I don't feel. He says, so what? Keep faking it. And just behaving like someone who loves absolutely everything, someone who is love. And
He did, I remember
I
that.
think that's fabulous. Maybe we should try this all week to fake it until we make it. Just see what happens. We should try this. I mean, really fake it
That's
till
what
we
we've been
make
doing
it.
anyway.
Well, we've
I'm
been
just
doing
perfect
that.
love. No, but I mean even more. You know, I'm perfect love. I'm doing, you know, really like
Consciously.
lay it on heavy.
Yeah.
You know, like really, yeah. Even
I-
put on my fake it till I make it cloak. You know.
I was a professional speaker for many years, and my business was on my feet as a teacher and others, and that's what I had to do because I was very uncomfortable on my feet. And but once I got up there, I just faked it. I faked it. You know, here I am, guys. Yeah, I've got some things to say and tell you, and they're all valuable. And I kind of went into it, and it worked. It worked. Didn't matter how frightened I was beforehand. It worked very well, but I didn't. It wasn't a very. It wasn't. When I reflected on that, the reflection wasn't very comfortable because I knew I was faking.
They didn't quite make it.
Well, I didn't know you fully. Didn't fully. Well, in a way, once you get up there and you're focusing on a subject, the subject matter simply becomes your thought process, and so you kind of leave the ideas that, hey, I'm not really feeling good at all, and you begin to feel good, and it kind of is a transformation of your mind in a short period.
We're all,
Faking it does work. It does work, but not.
we're all faking it every day
But
here in our lives, pretending that we're someone we're not.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think he even said something like that too.
Yeah.
Well,
It was a little bit humorous, something like that too. So why not fake it this way? You know, like really concentrated, like really
In the
intense.
beginning, I kept, every
Fake
time we
being
get
holy.
invited to do
Yeah, just
a gathering, I'd say, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? What am I going to do? And he always said the same thing, exactly the same thing. Show up and listen.
yeah. Oh,
Show
yeah.
up and listen.
Listen, what an
Listen
idea.
to the guidance that you've given.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's try that this week.
Show up
Showing
and
up
listen.
and
Let's
listening.
show up and listen.
Okay.
Okay, listen to that.
Yeah. And let's see if there's anything else that kind of bubbles up as a result of this, am I willing not to die? We've carried it past into other areas, so let's let that work with us for a while. Because I think we've still got some wonderful experiences to bubble up as a result of that.